Aaron, thanks so very much. And Peter, Kenneth, thanks very much for taking some time. And I know Aaron read your official bios, but that being said, maybe a little more color. There's the written form, and then there's the verbal delivery about, kind of what your specific role is at BlackRock here in Atlanta.
Peter, you want to start?
Sure, happy to. It's great to be with you all. I hope everyone is staying safe out there. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you for wanting to learn more about BlackRock Atlanta. We're excited to be with all of you. I've been with BlackRock, scary enough, almost 15 years. I've spent my entire career at the firm. Most of my experience has actually been spent on the client side of our business, managing relationships, both on the institutional and retail side, as well as the retirement business at BlackRock. And then in the last few years, I pivoted to the technology side. As we all know, technology is taking hold of every industry and every market out there. And so I wanted to learn more about how technology was influencing the asset management industry, and more specifically, BlackRock's business. And that led me to this really exciting project to not only help select Atlanta for BlackRock's newest location, but also figure out how we can really show up locally in a very thoughtful and meaningful way for all Atlantans. So excited to be with you all today, and excited to share more about the Atlanta iHub. Over to you, Kenneth.
Thanks for that, Peter. And thank you all, Chris and team included, for asking us to share some of our perspectives as it relates to BlackRock in the Atlanta office this morning. I think we still have about 9 more minutes left of the morning, so I'll officially still call it the morning. Again, my name's Kenneth Saffold. I've been with BlackRock for 4 years now, and actually my predecessor firm, Tannenbaum Capital Partners, which is a private credit, was a private credit fund, was acquired by BlackRock in 2018. So in total, I've been with the firm for 4 years. I've been in Atlanta a long time. My career is a little longer than 15 years. I won't date myself too much, but I got a little jealous when Peter said 15 years there. I've actually been in Atlanta for a long time, and I'm happy to talk through it. But before coming to BlackRock, I was with GE Capital for about a decade, and then before that, Goldman Sachs, before and after business school. And then actually started my career at Citigroup in the investment bank, and graduated here in Atlanta at Morehouse College. So I've been in Atlanta for a long time, and love to share my perspectives about that, as well as what we're doing here in the iHub.
Yeah, so before I know the focus is on BlackRock, but Kenneth, it's, you are, there's a bit of a unicorn with a more or less full career here in Atlanta. I'll readily admit I'm a transplant as well, having started my career in New York, and I've been in Atlanta, since 2002. So I think I almost qualify for native Atlantan status, but would love to hear a little more on some of the Atlanta roles that you've had, but also just any observations that you've had about the evolution of the financial services community here in Atlanta.
Yeah, happy to take that, Chris. Yeah, I've been in Atlanta a long time. I came back in 2006 and have been here a long time. I can't call myself a native. I'm actually originally from Minneapolis, but came down here a long time ago for undergrad and feel like I've been here a really long time. I guess I will caveat and say I do live in Buckhead. So to the extent that Buckhead does actually secede, that I've been hearing rumblings about, maybe I can no longer say I'm from Atlanta. But I certainly hope to, in going forward, be able to still consider myself an Atlantan. So yeah, the finance community in Atlanta is actually very strong. So some of the local banks that have a significant presence in here, like Truist, former SunTrust, like Voya, Chris, and some of the many other banks all have a significant presence here, and it can be felt. And in addition to that, a lot of the work that I do on the private credit side is in partnership with several sponsors and private equity groups that are based throughout the South, but also here in Atlanta. So you think about Roark Capital, M South Capital, and others. And we're talking to them on a daily basis about deal opportunities and where we can be helpful. So from that perspective, it has been tremendously valuable to my career. I'd also maybe just mention, in addition to the CFA Society, there's several other organizations that are kind of focused on the finance community here in Atlanta that I like to play a part in. So I've done a lot of work on M&A South with the Association for Corporate Growth. Peter, I'm sure, can talk about his work with the FinTech conference that happens annually here as well. But there's several organizations that we like to play a role in and to have some impact in as it relates to not only just BlackRock in Atlanta, but the finance community in large here in Atlanta.
And Chris, I would also add that the economic development, as we all know, we see the headlines, is very strong. You know, Atlanta is showing up in a very unbelievable way across, I think, multiple industries, but most importantly, the financial services sector. And, you know, given the pandemic, I think there's a lot of people out there evaluating just what's next for them. And I think companies are doing the same in terms of diversifying their footprints, sort of really evaluating exactly what their workplace strategy is in the future of work. And so I think we're going to be seeing more and more announcements as, you know, some companies choose to leave some of the bigger markets. And I think Atlanta continues to win in that way. I think as long as we keep up with our infrastructure and other needs to support all these jobs, obviously we want Atlanta to still be a very special place with a really strong quality of life. But I think we're going to see a lot of exciting announcements and hopefully more positive news in terms of continuing to diversify and build out the financial services sector here in the metro area. So.
Excellent. And so, Peter, you know, as mentioned earlier, you had some involvement with the selection of Atlanta for the iHub location. And I joked with you in our prep meeting. I recall actually you appearing at a Chamber of Commerce event. And so the decision by BlackRock was well before COVID. And respectfully, I think it looks pretty shrewd. The timing was well done. But can you share with us some of the factors or some of the attributes that drew the firm to Atlanta for its iHub?
For sure. Well, first, Chris, thank you for not making me stand up on a stage in State Farm Arena like the Metro Atlanta Chamber did. So I really appreciate that. But even though I am ready to be back in person again. I don't think I shine that well through these Zoom virtual events. But anyway, I will take a step back. You know, Atlanta was chosen for a whole slew of reasons, and I would say, you know, I could go on for hours. My partner in crime on the project, Trevor Newman, and I got to know the city of Atlanta and everything that the state of Georgia had to offer, both the company of BlackRock and our people, extremely well. But there are three major categories and criteria that we focused on and that we dug into. The first being the depth, diversity, and the quality of the talent market. I think we all on this call can agree, you know, talent is first and foremost, and especially in this very competitive job market that we see ourselves in today, which I don't think any of us really expected on the tails of a global pandemic. You know, that talent acquisition and talent management and retention effort is critical to our success, and I think all of our success. And so really studying and analyzing the talent market here was critical. So I feel like I became a human capital management expert pretty quickly through this project. I think secondly, the business environment. You know, and it's why I decided to move my husband and I from New York to Atlanta. I fell in love with Atlanta because of all of you. The collaborative business community is just unbelievable. I just can't even say enough about it. You know, what organizations like the Chamber and so many other organizations out there, what they do to bring together the business community, both for professional reasons, but also for reasons to support our people. And Kenneth is going to talk a little bit more about some of our DEI work and how we stand up for our people, the diversity of our people a little bit later. But yeah, I just can't speak enough about how collaborative Atlanta is. And I think it hopefully pays off for all of our businesses and also just our personal lives as well. And then the third thing, which I think we've all appreciated through the pandemic, is the quality of life. You know, not to be stuck in a very expensive 600 square foot, one bedroom apartment in Manhattan has been a really, really nice plus, and having a backyard and stuff. So I do think that this area, the culture and just the sense of community, I think it's an unbelievable quality of life that we as BlackRock wanted to offer our people.
I love that Peter and his husband made the decision together to move to Atlanta. For me and my wife, it was 100% solely her decision. When I left business school and was thinking about where I wanted to go, Akila and her family had moved to Atlanta, and this is where she wanted to be. This is where she wanted to raise her family. And I'd have to say, like every other decision by my partner, she made the right decision. And I will say that over the last several years, we've really, become more ingrained in the culture of Atlanta and really have fallen in love with the city. You talked about the Metro Atlanta Chamber, Chris. So I did, just get a couple of stats from them, which I wasn't very aware, but the organization Site Selection has actually named Georgia as the #1 place to do business in the nation, actually for the last 6 years, 6 consecutive years. That's pretty compelling. And there's another organization called Area Development, which also ranked Georgia as the top state for doing business, and then we've had that title for the last 5 years in a row. So that's pretty compelling as it relates to the business environment here. I'm sure many of you saw the Fortune 500 and the Fortune 1000 list that came out this month. The 29 of those companies of the Fortune 100 are headquartered here, right here in Metro Atlanta, and furthermore, 16 of the companies in the Fortune 500 are here as well. And so if you aggregate those almost 50 companies, we have in excess of 430 billion of revenue. And that's pretty significant, and why BlackRock, and another reason rather why BlackRock looks to this city for its continued growth. Peter mentioned talent, and I won't belabor the point, but I mean, there's several esteemed higher education institutions here. Morehouse, because I'm biased, and Spelman and Clark and Emory and Georgia Tech, and the list goes on, Agnes Scott, and the list goes on. There's several institutions rather that we can draw from and pull from the tremendous amount of talent here in the city, which makes Atlanta extremely compelling.
Thanks, Kenneth. So, hey, Peter, you hinted about wanting to go back to the office.
Yes, definitely.
Maybe the two of you can share a little bit about BlackRock's plans for return to office.
Happy to. Yes, my husband and I are planning on returning to each of our respective offices middle of July. So I think we're both looking forward to that. But BlackRock has been operational in Atlanta since the end of last year. And we did that with a lot of abundance of caution and a lot of protocols put in place. But we did that really to support people that maybe weren't in the healthiest of work environments at home. We've got a lot of younger folks that have chosen, small apartments because they want to be right next to the office. And also people have children at home, and we all know, I'm surprised my dog isn't in here distracting me as we speak. So, I think we knew that there were certain reasons why we wanted to make the office operational. And so, but by no means did we mandate or require anyone to return to office. But over the next couple of months, we'll be going through what we're calling the Reacclimation Phase, which is really just kind of figuring out how best to approach larger numbers of people returning to the workplace. And so we're piloting a number of different programs. We're trying out different things. We're obviously following all local guidance, and we're also figuring out how we're going to be a lot more market specific about this. As you all know and have read in the news, unfortunately, different parts of the world are experiencing this pandemic in different ways, and some parts of the world are really still struggling. We have a very big India operation. And so being there for our people right now in India is our first priority. And so, we don't expect our India colleagues to return till well into next year. But obviously in the US, we're in a different position where we can return more quickly. And so once we kind of go through that reacclimation phase over the next couple of months, following state and local guidelines, then we're going to be moving into a future of work pilot program, which is really going to start. We're going to start sort of, and you probably saw the news, BlackRock came out with sort of a new flexible work policy that we're going to pilot, which is really like a 3 days on, 2 days off. And obviously all of this is dependent on people's roles and responsibilities and their day-to-day jobs, and obviously working with their managers. And so that's going to run through the fall and through the end of the year. And then I think we're just going to reevaluate where we are. And I think 2022 will bring what will be, I think what we're all hoping will be the new normal. And as we kind of work towards figuring out what that is and what's best for our people and best for our business all at the same time. But I know that it's, and I don't know if Kenneth wants to talk about, being a client-facing professional at BlackRock, probably excited to get back in front of some of his clients as well. But also happy to respond to any questions people have in the chat. I'm not the expert on return to office policies and strategies, but just given my role with BlackRock, I've tried to get up to speed as much as possible. But Kenneth, I'm not sure if you wanted to comment on some of our return to client-facing activities.
Sure, happy to, and thanks for that, Peter. I hope folks know that I'm not at home today. I do not have an orange wall at my house. I'm actually in the office, and I've been here, gosh, since when did we open, Peter? I think October 26th is it?
Yeah, I was going to say around the end of October, early November. Yeah.
Right. And I've got 2 young kids. And so I think the office opened at 9 a.m. October 26th. I'm pretty sure I was here at 8:59, bags packed, ready to go. And I've been here pretty much every single day, every single week certainly, but almost every single day since then. I've just found it easier to work from the office, to separate kind of church and state, home from the office, and be able to kind of go home at the end of the day, which I missed actually during kind of the height of the pandemic. I just got the report this morning that said we're up to 60 people in the office today. That's out of almost 400, including contingency employees as well. So that's a big number. I think today is actually a record. So we're slowly growing. We're slowly coming back to some semblance of normalcy as well as it relates to folks in the office. To the point that I wanted to make just about client engagement, I do think that has been a little bit more flexible on the part of the firm. So to the extent that we have clients that are in office that are taking meetings, we do have an approval process to go out and meet with clients. So last week I was in Dallas meeting with several clients. Dallas is pretty much open like Atlanta at this point. I've also been to Charlotte to meet with clients as well the last couple of weeks. Because our business is very much client centric, and we focus on that. And to the extent that we can be in front of those and be in offices with some of our clients that are in office, we certainly want to do that. And I think that trend will continue. I think where we're headed is that this will be a transition period that Peter has mentioned, and then certainly after Labor Day there will be some structure for folks being in the office to the extent they feel comfortable.
So, gentlemen, actually, if I'm frozen, the downfall of working from home, my power flashed during the last discussion. So I'm still connected via phone. Couple of things. One, so Kenneth, talk to me about the in-person meetings that you're having right now. Our clients, are they welcoming you into their offices, or are you meeting with them off-site? What's been the experience to date?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and thanks for that, Chris. It's funny, we are not supposed to have clients in our offices just yet, but that's not the case for some of our clients. So in Atlanta, it's for the most part been offsite, either for coffee or for lunch or breakfast with our respective clients, just to catch up and to kind of get a sense and a pulse for the market has been the norm here in town. But I will say in the cities that I mentioned, Dallas and Charlotte, and we'll probably do a Florida trip as well, and a New York trip next week, a lot of folks are in the office. And it's been really easy to get in the office. The clients may not be called on by other institutions, so they're wide open, they're in the office doing work, and kind of are looking forward to the breakup of the monotony and have folks in the office. So I found it to be pretty compelling for our clients to have folks come in, and certainly been doing that over the last several weeks.
Yeah, I'm actually delighted. I booked my first business trip since COVID. That'll be at the end of this month.
Where are you headed?
I'm going to be going to Orlando for a conference,
Okay.
actually, but just a day. No hotel visit.
Very nice.
I'm sorry, Chris, that's where I'm from. I'm not that envious of you for that, but much prefer Atlanta over Orlando.
So the society itself, we represent, it's actually a very broad range of firms, large to small. And so it's not just CFA charter holders, but some people it's business owners and even office managers. So can you share with us as it relates to what has BlackRock's position been as it relates to vaccination and employees?
Yeah, we've got a lot of resources. So depending, obviously, like I said earlier, a lot of things depend on geography and location and what local governments are doing, especially governments across Europe and other parts of the world. But we are just providing as many resources as possible to our employees to access vaccinations if they choose to. And so obviously there's a lot of delicate guidelines and policies we have to follow based on law of not asking about people's personal health information. So I think it's really just providing an abundance of resources that our employees can access, and then obviously funneling questions to the right people. I would say that's really a huge focus for us, and we'll kind of see where that takes us. So.
I don't have much to add there. I think Peter said it well.
I know there was a question, Chris, in the chat regarding our community affairs work. I don't know if you wanted me to speak to that or if you had another question in mind.
You know what? Why don't we? I'm happy to make this more interactive. So let's actually move to the community affairs. We've got some other topics kind of queued up, but I would much rather make this more conversational and happy to address the Q&A.
Cool. And I'll let Kenneth dive in a little bit deeper too, because I know that we had talked about a lot of great community engagement activities that he's leading and been helping to drive for the iHub. But going back to like sort of what we were looking to do in Atlanta, we truly made a strategic intent to be local when we opened our doors at WeWork in early 2019. The last thing we wanted to do was to be a Wall Street firm steamrolling into the South, and also being local for our clients. We've got a lot of great clients, like Kenneth mentioned, some of the large firms and smaller firms in the region, and so I think we wanted to be local for those clients as well. But I've been very honored and humbled to be able to fill a role focused on community strategy and community affairs. And a lot of what I do, I'm a local on the ground resource for our foundation. And so we do a lot of mission aligned social impact work that focuses on economic mobility, workforce development, obviously upskilling our citizens to put them in a stronger position from an economic standpoint. And I think, obviously understanding the needs of Atlantans. Unfortunately, the pandemic has worsened the income inequality and the income gap that exists in our city. And so there's a lot of great organizations, both grassroots and larger organizations out there that are doing amazing work to try to close that gap. And so our foundation, luckily we've been able to get the attention of our global foundation that really allowing us and enabling us to do some amazing work on the ground to make a positive impact on the community. But in addition to our mission aligned work around financial well-being, our employees are really important as well, because they each have, all of us each have different personal interests and passions. And so supporting those interests and passions is a huge focus of mine, whether that's an animal shelter or the food bank, or a local organization that's trying to address homelessness. And so being able to provide our employees with resources to be able to do some of that work in their spare time, as well as their work time. BlackRock provides 2 days off a year for purely volunteering, and they really try to reinforce that giving back to each of our respective communities at the highest level. So And the last thing is on the community work is really deepening relationships with universities. As Kenneth mentioned, there's some unbelievable institutions that I think truly complement one another in Atlanta. And so there's opportunities to work with all of them. And I actually see them as strategic partners that we can be doing work with well above and beyond just talent pipelining. So really figuring out how we can work with these unbelievable academic institutions to drive our businesses forward. Sorry, Kenneth, that was a bit long, but hopefully, I don't know if you want to talk about some of the things that you helped to spearhead for the iHub.
Yeah, happy to. Look, my list is not even close to as exhaustive as Peter's, but one of the things that Peter asked me to lead last year was our social impact task force as part of our community engagement. And it was a small committee of us that identified local nonprofits where we made grants to the tune of about $250,000 that were focused on both healthcare, healthcare or education in underserved communities in and around the city of Atlanta. And we took that very serious. We thought that being involved and having an impact in the city was something that BlackRock wants to do. And just given the events of last year as it relates to D&I and racial equity, we wanted to kind of put our money where our mouth is. And so we did that. We're doing some other stuff as it relates to client engagement as well. And I was fortunate enough to be one of the founding members of a new fund that is focused on making investments in undercapitalized and underserved communities, our BlackRock Impact Fund that was mentioned earlier. And that'll be $1 billion fund. We've raised almost $500 million to date. And that'll be $1 billion fund focused on making private investments in these communities. Chris, we've shared materials with Christine Hertzeller over at Voya as well, because there's just been a ton of interest as it relates to what we're doing around underserved communities from an investment perspective as well. So, if you combine that philanthropic piece as well as the investment piece, I think BlackRock is doing a bunch of things and it has a bunch of initiatives focused on, D&I and how we can be of value there. Chris, you're on mute if you can hear us.
How about now? There we go.
There we go.
Awesome. So as it relates to kind of the sparking of that, were there any specific COVID-related challenges that you encountered, and how did you kind of overcome some of the hurdles, particularly if any program launched in the last 15 months? Wow, you've just had a huge obstacle placed in front of you.
I can take it first. If
go for it, man.
Good. Yeah. COVID, notwithstanding was a challenge, bit of a challenge. And I would say as it relates to fundraising, as it relates to client engagement, as it relates to hiring, there were challenges throughout the process, but I do think that our team has done an excellent job of overcoming those. And we're in an office that is, the sole mission is to grow, where we've made goals to the city to grow to over 1,000 people over the next couple of years. And, then COVID happened. So there's been a challenge there, and Peter can speak, much more involved there. Well, one thing I will highlight though, as it relates to challenges is in addition to COVID happening, the previous leader of our office actually got a really big job to go somewhere else. And we loved him, and he was great for the office, and a lot of people in Atlanta, were close to Claude, but he decided to do something else. And I think as a result of the work that our senior leadership team has done, Peter, myself, and several others, we were able to identify a new office head, Janelle Frazier, who will be joining us shortly, coming down from our New York office, who's going to be equally, if not more, impactful on the city of Atlanta. She has roots tied to the city, roots tied to the South, has been with the firm for a long time, and has a lot of connections within the firm and external to the firm that are going to benefit both our employees and our clients here in the Atlanta office. And I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we were definitely excited for Janelle to move this summer, and get her settled. I know that I'm sure there's many of you on the line that we're going to be introducing her to. So thank you in advance for making the time. I would say another COVID-specific challenge, or a couple of challenges, to what Kenneth said, the talent pipelining, like obviously we're growing significantly in Atlanta, which we're very excited about. And one of our biggest sources of talent are college graduates. And that talent pipeline really starts with a summer internship. And just so, after their junior year, and having to do that internship in a virtual environment is just challenging. It's very, very challenging. And for a lot of the students, it was their first sort of experience in sort of the corporate world. And so not being able to have them in the office and support them in person is definitely challenging. And we're going through our second summer right now in a virtual setting. So luckily we'll be welcoming our new analysts, our full-time hires after their graduation in a couple of months in person, which will be great. But still, that's definitely been a huge challenge for us. We're building a microcosm of BlackRock. So we're hiring in lots of different areas, which means, I think there was a question in the chat about just the diversity of our hiring. We like to hire, just like we like to hire business and finance students, we also like to hire cultural anthropologists and art history majors, because we truly feel that diverse background and those diverse experiences and just learning a lot of different things is really what makes the culture at BlackRock so special. And then the last thing I would just point out, the virtual volunteering, also very challenging. We have employees that want to roll up their sleeves and get their hands dirty and really give back to the community. Doing that over Zoom, unfortunately, can be impactful, but only in very specific types of engagements. A lot having to do around education and mentorship and coaching. But we can't plant trees or pull weeds along our new, backyard, being the Atlanta Beltline, and work with the Beltline partnership as much as we used to. So I think we're all looking forward to getting back and doing more of that type of work in person.
Awesome. And so, Peter and Kenneth, we had a question come in kind of regarding the mix of the employees in the Atlanta hub. To what extent are individuals, respectfully, Peter, I'm going to call you a lifer, but relocating to Atlanta from a previous BlackRock location versus recruiting new talent from the Atlanta area? And I'm just going to read. So is there any particular goal as it relates to new hires from the Atlanta area versus employees moving to Atlanta? So I guess any skill sets, and then how do you build and maintain the culture across your various office locations?
Well, two commitments we made out of the gate, and I am proud to say that we are well on our way to fulfilling those commitments. The first one being is that we committed to the state and local municipalities that we would hire 1,000 people within a certain scheduled time. We are well ahead of our goal there, despite COVID, which is great. But I think more importantly is that we also committed to ourselves that we would hire a population that reflected that of the community that has given us license to operate. So our workforce in the Atlanta Innovation Hub is going to look just like the community outside of those walls. And that is something that we take a lot of pride in, and that we're working very, very hard on making sure that we fulfill that commitment of diversity. And then lastly and finally, I would just say that, we're going back to the microcosm concept. I mean, just really building out a diverse set of teams is very important, because we really think that what we're doing and what we're piloting and what we're trying out each and every day is really shaping the future of BlackRock. But in terms of specifically hiring and what we've relocated in, we obviously had to seed with management, culture carriers, and so forth. But our commitment was, no matter what, that 1,000 people, we would have at least 800 hired locally. So at least 80% of our workforce will be hired locally. And that is a commitment that we've made. And I believe we're actually floating more at like 86, 87% right now. I'm not sure of the exact numbers, but I know that we're beating that 80%.
And hey, Kenneth, any perspectives from the team and group that you work within? Are you in that percentage zone, or is it a little different? Given
for private credit, there's 2 people here currently. I am one of them, so we're 50% diverse. I'm proud to say. I will say, I do lead our client ecosystem, which is a committee designed to find opportunities to engage with clients out of Atlanta. So not only are we covering them from a business function perspective, we're also covering them from a regional perspective as well. So to the extent that we're talking to Christine and team at Voya and other firms about how BlackRock can partner with these firms, we want to be at the forefront of those conversations to the extent that we can. So not only are we building out teams of both technology and operations that can work here in the Atlanta office, we're also building out teams that are client engaged, that are investors, that are looking to kind of build the financial community presence for BlackRock here in Atlanta as well. And so our conversations are not only with the hiring needs and the talent here in Atlanta, but we're also having conversations with the powers that be internally about, making a larger presence in Atlanta, like we've done with private credit and global credit, to identify this as a key region where we need to be more focused in on. And I think we're doing a good job of that.
Awesome. So maybe if we just kind of go back to 30,000 feet, and Peter, I heard you mention the word, microcosm, but what are some of the strategic initiatives that are being tasked with the Atlanta iHub for BlackRock?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I know Kenneth may be able to speak more on the client and the investment side of the house, but I do know that, from the very beginning, this became the Americas headquarters for the client experience work that we're doing to enhance the way that clients interact with the firm. Obviously, we're a large, complex organization. So obviously continuing to challenge how we face off with clients, the technology that enables self-service for clients. So a lot of that client experience work, both service and technology infrastructure, is being built and managed out of the Atlanta Innovation Hub. In addition, we're hoping very soon to start seeding a team around our index investment, ETF and index investment business around sustainable investment products. As you all know, sustainability is a big focus for BlackRock. Understanding how the climate risk impacts a client's portfolio is something that we're building into our Aladdin platform and our risk management technology. And so being able to build parts of Aladdin in Atlanta is very, very exciting, and obviously helps to have some of the great technical talent down the street at some of these major academic institutions, as well as being able to do sponsored research with Georgia Tech and the other sister organizations. So those are a couple of the big focus areas, but also just really, really happy to have, marketing, we have HR, we have finance, we've got our real assets business and the alternatives business that Kenneth is in, and then we've got literally representation and client relationship managers in almost every one of our client-facing businesses. So the fact that we're able to serve all different types of local clients truly locally is something that we take a lot of pride in, and that we're continuing to work on to have those resources local. So then we don't have to fly in a relationship manager from San Francisco or New York, which quite frankly, I just think how can we understand really the needs of a local client if we're not here on the ground? And so that's something that we're really focused on.
Peter, I hate to put you on the spot, but maybe as a part of that, you might want to talk about our community engagement and the hate crime legislation.
Oh, yeah. So, and part of that showing up locally, I would say, is having a voice and standing up for our people. And we saw a very unique opportunity last year, really right when the pandemic was starting to to ravage our community and so many others. When hate crime legislation was on the docket for the Georgia State Senate, and the fact that, the amount of pride that I had in our leadership, BlackRock is not resourced to the point of like getting involved in local politics. That's not typically something that we do. But the fact that BlackRock was truly supportive and backed our leadership team, in which Kenneth and I sit on, for BlackRock to publicly stand up and support hate crime legislation here in Georgia, and being able to lead that corporate coalition that the Metro Atlanta Chamber organized was truly a proud moment for me. And I know all 400 of our employees in Atlanta. And so we, between our workforce, we wrote hundreds of letters to the state Senate, and took a very active voice and very active position. And obviously, as you all know, that bill passed and was signed into law. So, a very proud moment for our Atlanta community and for BlackRock. Thanks, Kenneth, for calling that out.
Kenneth, any priorities that you might be focusing on that you'd want to share with attendees this afternoon?
Yeah, certainly. A couple of I've already mentioned. One, as it relates to client engagement, the work that we're doing around client ecosystem, specifically as it relates to our alternatives business, is pretty important. I will say that we've identified Atlanta in the Southeast as a region as an area for growth for our alternatives business. So be it for private equity investments, for private credit investments, micro, and also for real assets and real estate and infrastructure. We've identified the South region and Atlanta specifically as a key area for growth. So our goal over the next couple of years is to increase business in these specific areas as it relates to employees here in the Atlanta office. So that's been kind of first and foremost from a client engagement piece. I would also say, and this is also the alternatives piece, the group I mentioned earlier, the BlackRock Impact Fund also sits in our alternative space as well. And we've identified Atlanta as a key region, along with several other cities throughout the US, that we would like to originate new business and identify partners as we continue to grow that business as well. Peter mentioned a lot what we're doing around social impact, and my comments earlier around the social impact task force that we worked on last year, also very relevant, and so I'll just leave it there.
Awesome. So there was a bit of a question as well. So we've kind of spoken to the efforts of the firm regarding ESG, D&I. At the same time, though, one of the questions was, to what extent is DEI and ESG becoming more prevalent in RFPs from potential clients that you might be seeing for new business opportunities?
Yeah, I saw the question actually, and to the extent that we're involved with fundraising, all of our institutional clients are asking about it. They're interested to know not only in the investment piece and where we will be investing their monies. Is that diverse environments? Is that focus on underserved and or undercapitalized communities? But also the workforce. What does our current workforce look both at the very junior level, but also as you think about retention and promotion at the very senior level as well? I'd be remiss to say that BlackRock has a little bit of work to do, especially as it relates to workforce globally. But I'm also pleased to highlight that the Atlanta office is far and above the most diverse office that we have in the system. And so tribute to the work that Peter and the rest of our leadership team are doing around hiring diverse candidates, because that's actually becomes a commercial attribute as it relates to new business and RFPs for additional fundraising at the institutional side. It's just been tremendous, and it's only over the course of the last, call it 12 to 18 months, that I've seen that become more and more prevalent. But I do expect the trend to continue going forward. And pretty much every meeting we're in with with clients on the institutional side, they're asking, what are we doing as it relates to D&I? And obviously, we've got a lot to share, just given the work that we've been doing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with Kenneth more. And having started my first 3.5 years at BlackRock writing RFPs, I remember those days, and knowing our head of consultant relations very well. still being a mentor of mine, she, I think, would tell you that more so than ever, you're going to see very large sections of these documents and these questionnaires and due diligence, templates for meetings and so forth, going to be focused around all things corporate social responsibility, corporate governance. How are we holding ourselves accountable, just like we're trying to hold on behalf of our clients vote other companies accountable. We need to hold ourselves accountable. DEI, corporate sustainability, you name it, it is a huge focus, and it should be.
Awesome. And then just one other, and it's actually a personal question, Kenneth. So ESG analysis, with great respect to any and all of our equity colleagues on the call today, there are numerous vendors that they'll plug it right into Aladdin for that matter, as it relates to readily available information on ESG for analysts to then to augment their perspective. How is the world of private credit addressing some of these challenges in what I suspect is not a robust data infrastructure system when compared to other parts of the public capital markets?
Yeah, so I think the question, Chris, is how are the private markets focused on ESG when the information may not be as readily available as it is in the public side? Yeah, it's a great question. And I don't know that I have the right answer, but I tell you what we are doing. We are actually, there's a couple of thoughts here. So in any new deal that comes into the firm, or at least on the private and global credit side, we are filtering for is this, could this be considered an ESG focused investment? So to the extent that there's, any investment that is focused on the improvement of the environment, obviously the social impact and governance, we want to be in front of that. And to the extent that there are KPIs that we can identify to how the improvement will benefit the community, that's a good investment for us. So that's the first. And then the second is on the impact side, to the extent that they are investing in either management teams or ownership teams that are 50+1% women or minority owned, we want to document that as well. And you can ask. And then, the flip side of that is to the extent that it's not, and it's majority owned or operated, we also look to the product or the service of the business to identify where it's having an impact, if it is having an impact in these underserved and undercapitalized communities. And we've actually identified, I think, 26 different census tracts across the US where we want to find new opportunities, Atlanta having several as well, that can fit that check that box for the impact side as well. So we're actually kind of putting that into the new deal origination work because it just doesn't exist. And so we're having to start recording that ourselves over the course of the last several months rather, to identify where there is a ESG/impact initiative and where there's an investment opportunity for us.
And I just want to call out real quick, Chris, for some of the work that Kenneth is leading. There was a question in the Q&A portal, which I guess is separate from the chat. I'm like, still clearly after 15 months, I haven't learned Zoom completely. But there was a question around the functions of the iHub and the goals for it. And just something that I would like, to reiterate sort of, or to build on the microcosm work. It's just, I think the way that we're a large organization, and the way that we collaborate cross-functionally is critically important. And Kenneth, for example, is leading our client ecosystem work. So, and just to take his comments a little bit further, it's like, how can we break down some of the silos that exist between some of our commercial businesses and how we interact with different types of clients, and we learn best practices on like how to best serve those clients and those stakeholders. And so being able to have a client ecosystem lead like Kenneth, someone to lead the investment ecosystem so we can share across different investment platforms. And we're doing the same in our technology ecosystem, as technology is obviously driving a lot of change in a lot of the work that we're doing. And so I would just say, in terms of some of the purpose and the objectives that we're really trying to shed greater light on in Atlanta, it's around that ecosystem development and how we're collaborating cross-functionally.
And then there's another within the chat. And so Kenneth is going to be back to you. So for the impact fund, are you able to share any local investment highlights? I know you previously shared some information as it related to percentage share of minority women business, owned businesses and things like that. But any additional local highlights that you might be able to share with us?
Yeah, so I'm not able to provide names of companies and partners that we're considering because it's relatively new, but I will say, wholeheartedly, Atlanta is a focus for BIO. BIO is BlackRock Impact Opportunities Fund. Sorry, it is not a bathroom break. But for BIO, we are tremendously focused on Atlanta, both in real estate, which there are several opportunities here in the city of Atlanta and in the surrounding area, private equity, as well as private credit. So we're looking at several opportunities in the city that we can make investments for BIO, but no, we haven't made any to date, and we're still in fundraising mode. I think I might have mentioned we've raised close to 400 million to date with a goal of $1 billion, a hard cap of $1.5 billion. And we'll be, very much focused on the city of Atlanta and all it has to offer as it relates to impact investing.
Awesome. And then another question has come in, again, related to work from home. So what type of supportive resources has BlackRock made available to employees during work from home, whether it be flex hours or childcare? Some people are saying, summer Fridays with no internal calls after 12. That rule has been broken on my calendar already. Mandatory vacation, but what else has BlackRock done? And I'm going to add something to that question, which is, how has your onboarding protocols changed for new hires who have started remotely as opposed to starting in a specific office location?
Yeah, and I guess I'll start there. I mean, it's definitely challenging. It's a little bit different, where we meet you in the lobby and we welcome you and, shake your hand and the whole 9 yards. And now you're getting a box with a laptop and a bunch of BlackRock swag on your doorstep. So it's been different, but I will tell you, it's folks like Kenneth and our entire leadership team that are stepping up and really scheduling time and being thoughtful around bringing these people into the fold as much as possible. Because whereas before you could meet someone just by running into them next to the water cooler, you have to be a lot more purposeful in terms of making sure that we are, being strategic around bringing people into the firm. And so there's a lot more coordination and organization that's going around in terms of onboarding people. And I wouldn't say we're perfect whatsoever, but we're still trying and challenging ourselves to do more and more. And then speaking about the resources, I mean, I think, at least from my standpoint, BlackRock's been pretty amazing. I'm staring at a huge monitor that was provided by the firm. And, at the end of the day, we were forced to take time off. We already have an unlimited vacation policy or flexible time off policy. So we take the time that we need. But people have been taking leave when they need to be there for their families. Especially as they support someone who's ill in their family, or they're just having a challenge with childcare. But I would say that, I think the forced vacation and the forced time off has probably been the most important, because quite frankly, I think when personal is bleeding into work and work is bleeding into personal, there's no division, as we all know. And so forcing ourselves to kind of break away and have a potential different agenda for the day and a change of scenery has been critically important. So, but, I think we continue to find new ways and new approaches to providing the right resources to our people.
It might be worth mentioning, just as it relates to the mental health piece, the firm has actually gotten the Calm app for all of the employees. All, I think 18,000 of us have access to the Calm app for free, which is a meditation tool folks may or may not be aware of. But I think that was tremendous, as well as providing, to the extent folks are interested, therapy sessions. I think the firm provides up to 6 different therapy sessions that our employees can utilize to the extent that they feel comfortable, which for me it is key as well. And I think the mental health aspect is actually pretty important, something the firm has really spearheaded and taken a lead on, and I think it's been helpful to a lot of our employees. It might also be worth mentioning some of the work that we're doing around the junior professionals here in the Atlanta office. And specifically, we've developed a new program called the AECP, the Atlanta Early Career Program, where we're taking junior professionals who are either brand new to the firm or have only been here for a short while, and pairing them with senior director level or managing director level colleagues, both here in the Atlanta office, but also globally, who work directly in their business line. And the reason for doing this is so that the senior person becomes not only a mentor and a sounding board for ideas and thoughts on your career here at the firm, but also a sponsor. So we're purposeful in identifying people that are also within the business line of our junior colleagues. So when they're in the room and they're talking about various opportunities for these employees or promotions for these employees, you have somebody that you've developed a close relationship with, who can not only be a mentor but also sponsor and speak up on your behalf as it relates to other things you can do within the firm. And we think that this will be a key opportunity for our junior professionals. We've identified, I think, close to 25 different junior professionals in the Atlanta office, high performing talent who we think will benefit from this. So we're looking forward to that as well.
Peter, any additional comments from you on that particular program?
No, Kenneth has been doing all the work, the heavy lifting. So no, he's doing a great job, and the whole team that's been working on that program. I think it just goes to say that, like, all of the work that we're doing to support our junior colleagues that are newer to industry is very important. And same thing goes as like how we all are working together as a society and like figuring out how we share ideas and best practices, how we just support bringing in brand new seasoned professionals into our organizations during these very bizarre times. But no, I think he hit the nail on the head. I saw another question regarding, we'd love to hear your thoughts on the role of technology and finance of the future. I was thinking about this question in the last few minutes, and I just thought I would give a few thoughts. I do think that there is something very interesting that has developed from being able to work with universities and provide real like case type work. I do think like actual case studies, real world examples and challenges, whether you're providing it to a class at a university or in another forum, I think is critically important, because I know we've hired a lot of technologists who are highly talented with tons of technical skills, but they just were never given the experiences of like actually solving problems that like a company like BlackRock or so many of your organizations out there are facing. And so there's still so much onboarding and so much work we have to do when we hire some of the best and brightest out there. And so I kind of challenge all of us on the line that like, I think we need to do our part too, to make sure that we start to share some of the challenges and the problems that we expect technology to solve, but we need to set these bright minds up for success, and find ways to give back to these institutions that are trying to train them and prepare them to join our organizations.
And so kind of bridging that gap, completely agree with you on that particular point. CFA Society of Atlanta, we've actually hosted a variety of technology sessions. There was a full day course on Python.
Awesome.
Be it, all of us as members were interacting with college students, but for that matter, is there any, and you can't name Aladdin, is there any emerging technology out there that you would encourage financial services professionals to gain more exposure to in order to maybe bridge the gap sometimes? So you might have the greatest technology resource in the world, but if you're not familiar with the technology, you might not be able to properly articulate what you're hoping to see as a solution.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to break apart some of the buzzwords. There's a lot of buzzwords out there. People love to talk about artificial intelligence and some of these technologies. And quite frankly, I don't know if we're at the point of seeing exactly how some of these technologies are going to influence or shape our business and our industry. But, I do think machine learning, and I do think there's certain tools and techniques out there that are actually been very useful to, like, for example, our research analysts, many research analysts on portfolio management teams are using machine learning and other advanced technologies to comb through all sorts of reporting and all sorts of annual reports and other things that just better, I would say, position our portfolio managers. But Kenneth is on the investment side of our house, so I probably should be deferring to him on some of this stuff. But since I am not a trained technologist, just FYI. So
yeah, I'm a little hesitant to answer, namely because of my age. And I frankly, outside of Aladdin and PowerPoint and regular Microsoft Office suite, there I'm pretty much a novice as it relates to brand new technology. I know that's probably not the best answer coming from a firm that considers itself a technology firm, but we just don't. It is not that involved in my personal role. I will say that from an investment perspective, we've been very much focused on enterprise level software. So anything kind of functioning to improve the efficiency of any business, we've been 100% focused on from an investment perspective, at least. And so that's been important to us as well. And we've looked at recurring revenue as an opportunity to invest in on the credit side as well. And that's been significant to many of our sponsor clients as well. But from a day-to-day use, I don't have much more to share other than that.
How about this, Chris? We'll promise to bring back someone more technical the next time that we have the privilege to speak to this group, because we're very fortunate to have very awesome space along the belt line at 725 Ponce. And so luckily we use that to attract many of our senior executives from San Francisco, New York, London, and beyond. And so we're have a lot of people I know that have pent up travel energy post-pandemic to come visit us. So maybe we'll bring some technologists back to you all.
We will welcome that opportunity. So I'm casting my eyes on both the chat. I'm also going to reopen the Q&A. I think we have addressed the various topics from our audience. Looking at my checklist, I think we were able to capture that as well. So with that, Peter, Kenneth, thank both of you. And in addition to these two BlackRock colleagues, there was an additional layer of support in the preparation for today's meeting. So I want to thank both of you individually, but also thank BlackRock as a firm for joining us this afternoon. Really great. We're really happy to have you here in Atlanta, and look forward to seeing more wonderful things for both BlackRock, but also the broader Atlanta financial services community. Aaron, let me hand it back over to you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Peter, Kenneth, and Chris, and thank you to everyone who connected with us today. This program was recorded and will be available to those who missed anything. Please be on the lookout for an event survey to follow, including the audio and meeting presentation. I hope you all have a great rest of your day.